recording. Oh, hi! Trump's rating drops another 5 points.
And here I thought we'd get an impeachment.
Welcome to GayTalk 2.0, the ultimate podcast for your dose of dish.
Good evening and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of GayTalk 2.0, the ultimate podcast, streaming live on Digital Stream Radio, where you can access that live stream every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. On today's show, we're going to be welcoming Bea Cordelia, one half of the cast of The Tea, a web series set across Chicago which follows Joe and Carter, a young trans woman and a queer black man, as they learn how to be best friends in the wake of their romantic relationship and Joe's transition. My name is Tom, and I'm your host, and as always, I'm here with my two friends, starting with the first one.
Hey, y'all. Nick or Trish.
And
Good to be with you guys. It's Chris.
welcome you all to
The Dish.
So we've got an amazing show, a lot to talk about, super amazing guest who we scheduled to have before, but of course scheduling conflicts forced us to move the dates up, and so we're super excited that she'll join us. And so let's jump right in. So why don't we, before we jump into our weekends, talk a little bit about what we're drinking, Christopher?
Or what we're suggesting.
Yeah.
Yes,
Go for
because
it.
it's not, I'm sure this would be yummy. And it is, for those who are in the New England area, it is rather wet out there today.
Actually, almost the entire eastern seaboard has
That's
been
true.
moist and wet for the past 3 days.
All those storms coming from Texas and that area. So yeah, we're going to go with a rainy cocktail today, and it is called the Damp Pavement. Yes.
Lord, it sounds like your ass, but go ahead.
Does it now?
Road rash.
Only Dr. G would know. So the
True.
ingredients of the Damp Pavement consist of 1 ounce ginger syrup, 0.75 ounces lemon juice, 3 ounces of water, 1.5 ounces of Scotch whiskey, 1 tablespoon of allspice jam, and then you garnish that with an orange peel, and you serve it in a mug.
That sounds so yummy.
It sounds interesting. It would warm you up on a rainy day.
I think I'm going to pass.
I think the ginger and the allspice liqueur with the water and the lemon juice really would complement the Scotch whiskey.
I'm just saying, it just sounds delicious.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
I want to try that one sometime.
So we should.
I probably can't afford allspice jam, though. It's probably expensive. It sounds expensive.
GayTalk credit card?
GayTalk credit card. All right, we'll be having that next week.
So what was it, that one that had is it the pumpkin butter? Remember that one?
Yeah,
I hated it.
I loved it. The turkey. What's it called? Sage and turkey, because it had fresh sage and pumpkin butter in it. I loved it.
I was like, Chris, you can have the pumpkin butter. He took it home.
Spread that shit on my English muffins in the morning.
Delicious. Sounds delicious.
So good.
I know. But anyway, so how are you boys?
Excellent.
So we are going to talk a little bit about our weekends before we jump into some stories. So why don't we kick it over to Trish? Trish, how was your weekend?
It was fine. What did I do? I worked on Friday. Saturday, I went out with a certain somebody who shall not be named.
A Steven.
Probably.
Probably. One of those.
And then it was Easter Sunday, so I spent it with a friend. We had brunch with his family. And then I went to another friend's house who shall not be named.
Another
Probably
Steven. Or Stefan.
And it was nice. It was relaxing. I didn't work last night, which was great. I had a really early morning today.
I missed you.
Thanks, boo. But yeah, no, I went there and evidently I don't know how to cut a pie. So there's this whole thing, I guess, with his family where you have to cut a pie a specific way.
But if they don't tell you, how are you going to know that?
So I did not know. And here I am like, I don't want a whole piece. I just want like a sliver to like taste it.
She probably just dug a spoon in there and said, here, I'll just have this
No, I
little
used the
corner."
knife. I used the pie knife. And then everybody in the entire house was like,
Oh, my God.
and my friend's aunt was like, oh, I'm going to get you when you least expect it. And I was like, what's that supposed to mean? They're like, yeah, you fucked up. I'm like,
Did he just name thou who shall not be named?
No, we did twice.
Aunt?
No, aunt is like an auntie.
Oh, Aunt. I thought the person's
Aunt.
name was Aunt.
Aunt.
I thought
Yeah.
the person's name was Aunt, like Anthony.
No.
I'm like, yo, she messed up.
No.
So I'm leaving the house, and she was like, well, we have all this food. Take some home with you. I was like, I don't think I'm going to take anything from this house tonight.
Because if you touch it wrong with the wrong spoon, you're gonna get in trouble anyway. That's awesome. And yeah. Speaking of Easter, happy Passover or happy Easter to everyone listening. I hope that everyone had a wonderful holiday because it's
Greek Easter is next week, I think.
Orthodox Easter is Sunday, yes.
So whatever you celebrate, I hope it's happy, it's among family, and that you enjoy it. So.
It's also Russian. That's why it's Orthodox. Because
Yeah,
there's
but,
Greek Orthodox, Russian Orthodox.
Darn Russians, they're always
Can
doing
we,
something
like, turn
different.
his mic off?
I'm just saying.
So, well, since you're already there, tell us about your weekend, mister.
Well, yeah, I worked Friday. It was Good Friday, and I happened to work at a seafood restaurant. So you can imagine how business was that day. Saturday, I also worked. Oh, no, Friday night, I went to Mama's house after I had got out of work. And what we like to do is we like to study together while consuming copious amounts of wine.
How is Mama?
Mama's doing well. She's finished. She's on a 3-week break right now, and she's on her path to becoming a nurse. She's about to cross that threshold.
Hey, listen, soon enough she'll be pinned.
That's right. That's right. And she'll be tripping over people's
Trays and beds.
what do you call it? Oh, catheters and life support. Yeah,
She
it's
has small feet.
It's gonna and a tall girl, so
Yeah,
top
yeah.
heavy. So she's tall
Yeah, I know.
with
but
small
still.
support. Oh, she tumbles.
And she
Oh,
has
we
a-
all know
Yes.
she tumbles.
Yes, it led to me seeing one of her breasts. It was adequate.
Oh, so she pulled,
It was adequate.
so she pulled an Arya Stark this weekend. Fabulous.
Well, I didn't see her breast this weekend. This was years ago when we lived together.
Oh, okay.
When I was trying to force her into my, I probably shouldn't talk about that. She's
Yeah,
gonna be
no,
a nurse.
yeah.
Your weekend,
so,
not hers.
So we were drinking, like I said, lots of wine, and we were studying, and I helped her study for. She's clepping out of humanities, so she needed to learn about classical music. So I was teaching her
Klepping?
clepping.
Yeah,
you explain-
like that book that's sitting
Yeah,
over
the
there.
one that Nick's been wanting to do for Spanish.
Gotcha.
You take this test, and if you
Gotcha.
get a certain score on the test, you can earn
It's
so
pass
many.
or fail.
Yeah, but you can, even for the German one I want to do, you can actually earn 3 to 9 credits depending on what you score. So you can
But-
get up to 9 credits. But yes, it's a pass or fail at the end of the day kind of thing. So she's doing it, and she has to, do art history and a lot of music history. So I was filling her in with different composers, styles of music, the difference between cantatas and all that stuff. So, we
So
had
in
a lot
other
of
words,
fun.
the conversation was right up your alley.
Oh yeah, it was great.
Yeah,
It was great.
That's awesome.
It was a lot of fun. And then Saturday I worked again. It was crappy. And then Sunday I worked Easter brunch up in Windsor Locks. It was a lot of fun. It was a nice time actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I chilled. It's a very low key weekend for me. I got a new gadget on Friday, which has been amazing. Although I'm still conflicted because I think my dog's reaction to it is a little like, "What the hell
It's
is
a
that?"
torture device.
It is not.
I mean, it kind
So
of is.
it's this little device that emits a high frequency pitch that only dogs can hear. So my dogs have a tendency of jumping on people when you get to the door. Immediately they run to the door. They start barking,
Jumping on people,
and
running away,
jumping.
pooping on the floor, peeing on the floor.
Immediately after you let them out.
yeah. Yeah.
So I got this device, and I was testing it with my delivery guy, the guy that I order takeout from. Anytime he comes to
You
the
were
door, my dog would go nuts. So when the delivery guy
Okay,
came
that
over,
makes more sense.
he rang the doorbell, and the dog started barking immediately. And I just pushed the button, and he stopped, like right in his tracks. And then he was just like, "Okay, what was that? And where did it come from?" And he was all confused, and he completely forgot about the guy. And so now, anytime that someone walks in through my door, I've tried to make it a point that if the dogs are out, I'm by the door and I'm ready to hit that button if he tries jumping, etc. And you noticed that today. Like he was different. Oliver's completely unaffected by it for whatever reason.
Well,
So, but another thing that they're now stopping or not doing is when I go outside and the dog next door is out. As soon as they start running towards that fence, I hit that button, they come right back. So, and eventually what that does is it gets them out of the habit of doing things that I don't want them to do, like jumping on people or going to bark at the neighbor's dog or
so can I have something like that for you?
Can I get one for you?
I mean, like, you can try.
Girls, you are both far too old to hear those high pitches.
Yeah, I know, just the low ones. But overall,
This is
so
the
that's,
second time I'm gonna say shut her mic off.
Yeah. So that's basically what I did for the weekend, and I don't know. Like I've been reading up on it, and there's a lot of people that train dogs that say these types of training mechanisms are good. They don't have a shock collar or anything.
I see. I don't understand because like I'm upstairs in the bathroom or in my bedroom, and I hear my dog bark, and I'm straight up like Raleigh. She stops.
Well, I mean, but
People. I guess dogs just don't fuck with me.
but you know my dogs.
They don't fuck with me when I'm here.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's just they act up around their parents.
Maybe.
So my thing is, I'm trying this. I'm gonna see how it progresses, and hopefully.
I think you just treat one like a princess too much.
No, I do not.
She said it.
And hopefully it'll work. So,
Who runs
just
the
try.
house? Fitz.
I
Who
do.
runs?
I can't. But anyway, so that was pretty much my weekend, and of course I worked at the bar. It was Easter on Sunday, and it was pretty much low key. Game of Thrones.
I haven't seen
Came
Tom
back.
out at the bar in a while, and he
I
came out on Friday
I
night.
did. Actually, I forgot about that. Yeah, I did come out
You
Friday.
probably did forget about it.
So, but I did. I had a good time, and it's like I was off Friday because it was Good Friday. I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna be in this house all day long, and all night long. I need to get out of the house. And so I just, took a ride to the bar and had a couple of drinks and then came back home. And it was fun. I saw a lot of people. I got to interact with people on the other side of the bar, which is not usually the norm for me. And it was fun.
Yeah.
Overall, a fun weekend.
You definitely had fun that night.
I did. Some people say, you were hammered. I was like, no, because I remember everything. Okay.
I think you know what it is. It's the fact that like you don't really go out that much anymore. So when you do go out, you get loose, and it's not like you get crazy, but like we're like, oh, she's feeling it right
You know
now.
what it is when I'm behind the bar. I have to emit a certain demeanor. I'm working. This is my place of employment. When I'm on the other side of that bar, girl, I'm gonna call everybody bitch. Hey, bitch, and just go nuts, let loose. So it's always fun. Don't look at me that way.
What way?
You bitches are crazy. Anyways, so we have some stories. We do have a guest, so we're going to move right into some of those. So I'm going to kick it over to Chris because Chris has got a very interesting story here that we want to dissect. So, Christopher, why don't you tell us what you're talking about?
Yeah, we remember last year. Was it last? Yeah, it was last year when the Supreme Court agreed to hear the cake case out of Colorado. Was it? I believe it was.
I believe so.
And they never came to an actual ruling, but they pretty much set a precedent that you can discriminate openly against gay couples by allowing this, by siding with the baker who denied to bake a cake for a same-sex couple. Now, today the Supreme Court actually agreed to take on 3 cases, 2 of which are involving discrimination based on sexual orientation, and 1 on gender identity, and these will start. And these cases will be heard in the term that begins in October of this year.
That's right.
So the first one involves Donald Zarda. We had talked about him, I believe, in a past episode. He was a skydiving instructor who was fired from his job in 2010 after he told a client he was gay. Now, his employer, which was the New York-based Altitude Express, they said that he was fired because he was touching the client inappropriately. We don't know if that's exactly what it was. So they're going to listen to that case. And the other sexual orientation case, Gerald Bostick, was a social worker employed by Clayton County, Georgia, and said he was fired for being gay. And then the third case, which is a gender identity case, funeral director Amy Stevens was fired from a Michigan funeral home company in 2013 after she began presenting herself as a woman at work. Now, the company that owned this funeral home said that she violated his dress code by wearing women's clothing, and it also violated his religious beliefs about gender being God-given at the time of birth. So by this person coming in dressed in women's clothing, it went against, apparently you can't do that. You can't wear clothing that doesn't belong to your gender, but how does one interpret what, you could wear a certain T-shirt that looks like a cut that a woman would wear, and he could say
women wear pants too. So
exactly.
I mean, what if you had a female working and she wore pants? Would you say to her that, hey, that's inappropriate clothing because you're a woman, you should wear a skirt or a dress?
It's
or
clearly
heels?
it's clearly that this Amy Stevens was fired because she was transgender. She was
Well,
starting to.
we did mention several times before that there were several cases that were percolating throughout some of the lower courts that I knew eventually would end up at the Supreme Court. And these specific 3 cases are going to have a profound impact if they decide to go through, listen, and make a decision on them. Right, because they can still accept them. They can have you go through all of the litigation, and then they can decide to not really render an opinion and send it back to the lower courts.
Right, absolutely. And the irony about something that I read up following this was a statement that came out from GLAAD's, who was it? I'm sorry, Sarah K. Ellis of GLAAD. And she was saying that the path to LGBTQ equality is through the Constitution. And this is what we were talking about in class today when I was in American government. And do you guys do you recall, I believe it was 1972, the Equal Rights Amendment was proposed on March 22nd of 1972 with a set 7-year deadline. And what this proposed amendment stated was, quote, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex. Now, I believe it fell short of 4 or 5 states to ratify it.
But like, I think they defined sex a certain way. So sex.
No, it was really a fight to ensure that women were given the same rights.
Right.
That's what it was for. That's what it was for. And people that oppose it are saying that this was fighting for the right to abortion, and it would be involving ladies in the military. But of course, I think one of the reasons, yes, that should be a concrete, like the straw that broke the camel's back to make sure that abortion is protected, to make sure that the 9th Amendment is protected, which is the right to privacy. And then at the same time, it's going against the 14th Amendment, which is equal protection under equal law. Women are not treated the same way. 1, with the pay gap. 2, with the fact that they are having people go in and try to have control over their bodies. There's no equal protection under equal law at that point.
And every state is doing their part in trying to make it even more difficult for women to
absolutely
to make choices for their own bodies and their own sexual health.
Yeah, when you look at states like Texas, who had closed down so many different places where people can go to get advice or have abortions, it would take them hours and hours to get to them. And then some places would, have that 24-hour waiting period where the decisions, it impedes on their right to privacy. It goes completely against the 9th Amendment.
But it also introduces an undue burden on the person who's trying to exercise their constitutional right to decide that they want to have an abortion.
And with new states putting out, I believe it's Georgia, and I think it was Indiana that was one of the more recent states that proposed these heartbeat laws, which once a heartbeat is detected, abortion is outlawed. But
one of them was Ohio, I think.
Ohio, that's what it was. Thank you. It was Ohio.
I think Georgia, they said something like 14 weeks, and I'm like, someone wouldn't even know they're pregnant.
Exactly, that's what it is. Georgia had passed it. Ohio had proposed it, and I don't think it's been signed into law yet. But should that happen, yes, a woman who might not even know she's pregnant might not ever be able to have the option legally to have an abortion. But the interesting thing was, when it comes to these cases of LGBTQ rights, it's constant battles going between the courts. And there have been over 300 anti-LGBT bills in all the 50 states over the past 3 years. 28 states still allow someone to be fired from their job legally because of the person they love. So at this point, the process of going through the courts is just not going to get the job done. And what we really
it's very lengthy and costly, right? It
takes
a long time.
Honestly, I think you're wrong, because I think it will get the job done, but it has to get to the Supreme Court. It has to be a ruling from the Supreme Court, but it's not going to happen until it percolates in the states.
But if you look at the process of a constitutional amendment, in order to amend the Constitution,
it takes
3/4.
34 states, I believe.
38. I think it's 38.
3/4.
Well, it's 3/4 of the states need to ratify the bill or the amendment
in their own bodies of government. Like, they would need to adopt it as part of their constitution and also approve the constitutional amendment.
So what does that mean? So that means that we have to be conscious of who we're putting into office, both on the state level and the national level.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what it is, if you look at, I just want to read what the Equal Rights Amendment was. or like I had said back in 1972, and now what people are proposing is, and we're literally short one state to vote. Now, something we were talking about in class today was this: when they gave it a 7-year window, and then they extended it after that. Now, should another state ratify this, should the process start over? I think so, unfortunately, because that was the law. They put the rules that it was a 7-year window, and then they extended it to 1982. If we know that the 38 states will be on board, then yes, it should go back through the vote of ratification, knowing that that 38th state would come in. And the new wording of the bill is, quote, where are we? Okay, quote, equality of rights under the law shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. The way that we're really going to make a difference and really ensure that rights of all Americans are protected is by going through the constitutional process. We need to add an amendment to make sure that all people, regardless of their sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity, are protected under the very Constitution that formed our nation.
Yeah, and
So I'm confused. You literally said that it's going to be almost impossible to do this.
No.
But now you're saying we need to do this.
No, I'm saying with going through the court process, we can make progress and then get thrown 3 steps back. In order to really solidify the rights of all Americans, we need this constitutional amendment where the Supreme Court's not going to decide on one case and then when the court leans another way 40 years from now can rescind that decision and change rights. It will not be solidified that we are guaranteed our rights until it's in our Constitution.
So I guess I'm ignorant here.
No, not at all.
No, I am. So I'm confused. So if we have an amendment, we don't have to go through the Supreme Court.
No,
we don't.
the Supreme Court can weigh in if it's unconstitutional at that point, but it's a constitutional amendment. 3/4 of the states say that.
And it can happen at the national level, but not the state level.
No.
It can happen at the national level. Here's how it would work. So one of the states would propose an amendment to one of the 2 articles in our Constitution.
Okay.
In order to make a change to our actual Constitution of the United States of America, you need to go through the constitutional process of getting those amendments amended.
But can't all of that be like thrown out by both the president and the
No.
So once, in order for you to ratify a change into the Constitution, like we've done so many times before for the Civil Rights Movement, when we abolished slavery,
the 13th Amendment,
it requires that 3/4 of the states of whatever size the U.S. is at that time. So if you have 60 states, then you need the majority, 3/4 states. Right now we have 50, so I believe it's either 34 or 38 that would need to also ratify the proposal that's being fed at the federal level, at the state level.
The conversation for this step in American history has already begun, and our country is primed to have the necessary 38 votes to ratify an amendment. So that's what it is. We fell short 4 votes, but following that, Hawaii or Illinois and one other state ratified this. So we are technically at this point 1 state short.
But if the Supreme Court rules a certain way, then the Constitution would naturally be changed, correct?
The only way the Constitution is going to get changed is if
they rule that the word sex in the Constitution means sexual orientation, sexual whatever, then that's what the word means, and they don't have to ratify the Constitution because the word itself means this.
Ratifying only means to vote in favor of amendment, which means a change or an adaptation to the Constitution.
No, I know that. I'm just
saying
saying
that from the judicial.
No,
but they can rule that sex means this, and if the sex means this, then
it becomes law.
Right.
But it doesn't change the Constitution. In order to make it
changes the meaning of the Constitution.
Of that
the
term,
interpretation of the term, yes.
But they're avoiding that. They're getting rid of that gray area by wording it on account of sex, sexual orientation, and gender identity. They're spelling it out. That's saying,
great.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. They are saying that under no circumstances should someone under the law be denied or abridged by the law of the United States or any state at that point on account of their sex, sexual orientation, or gender identity. And that's the way that it's going to get done. If we do this through the constitutional process, get the 38 states on board, That's written into our Constitution to become, I believe, the 27th Amendment.
Yeah. The other thing that we have to keep in mind too that is some of these decisions that could potentially be made by the Supreme Court are also at the hands of a very conservative majority at this point, because with the appointment of Brett Kavanaugh, with the appointment of Neil Gorsuch,
Right.
You're looking at
28, excuse me, sorry, 28. It would be the 28th Amendment.
Okay. So, with the appointment of these two very conservative judges, there is a possibility that any of these three cases could have an unfavorable ruling.
Right.
Which could impact, one of two things can happen. They can rule and make it law and say this is what it is, or they can send it back to the lower courts and let those decisions that were made there stand.
Such as the Colorado case.
That's correct. So,
And marriage equality.
Which is why, well, I mean, marriage, again, I forgot the term, and I know it was my homework to figure this out, but marriage equality, essentially, according to my friend who's a law student, says that it's a done deal.
No, yeah, I know,
Right.
but it went up and it was pushed back down, and
Oh,
then
of
it
course,
went back
yeah.
up.
Which is why that's this whole up and down, this roller coaster effect of going through the courts, sending it to the last resort court, to the high court, back to the appeals courts. It's not going to solidify our rights until it is inscribed into our Constitution.
So marriage equality is right now the law of the land, right?
Right.
But let's say, for example, someone wanted to challenge it and a new panel of judges decide that they want to
Right.
rule it unconstitutional. The only way that we can get it enshrined in black and white is to go through the constitutional amendment, get it changed,
Right.
and have it put into our Constitution. And then no matter what the
I'm
judges
aware
rule,
of what you're saying.
that's basically what we're trying to say. So there's two ways to get to the same place. One of them really ensures that in order for someone to make a change to that, they would have to go through that constitutional process again, and it becomes that much more cumbersome to get 38 states to come on board and
Did
change
we have
something
38
that they
states
ratified.
before we went marriage equality?
We
No.
did not. That was
Correct.
a ruling from the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
But it can
Thank
be
you.
overturned.
But technically it can, even though...
But if the Supreme Court overturns its ruling, they're basically cutting themselves at the knees
they're
and
not
saying that everything that they once found constitutional is no longer constitutional. So what is then their standing?
But remember, they're not going to be the one that decides that this amendment is constitutional or not, because this amendment is not part of the Constitution. All that they're going to be able to do, and their responsibility and their duty, is to interpret.
I'm aware.
Right. So
Yeah.
they're not going to have any say should this go to the a constitutional convention to try to get this added to the Constitution. They're just going to later figure out if cases are constitutional to that amendment or against it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think, this is a very healthy debate. I think that there's a lot that could happen, come, a couple of months from now when we start seeing some of the results of what they're hearing at the Supreme Court. And it could have a very, very adverse, impact on our community, specifically on all aspects, including our brothers and sisters in the trans community.
Yeah, you're just going to get a lot of pushback. A lot of
Yeah,
pushback. I
and-
mean, you already see it. I mean, with Pete, I'm going to call him Pete.
Mayor Pete?
Mayor Pete. I mean, he was like harassed at a rally the other day. Luckily, all of his followers were like there and there to support him. But like, we're dealing with like the highest level of hatred in our country right
Right.
now that
Well,
we've seen in a long time.
And I would like to acknowledge
And
the
we're gonna
fact-
expect 38 states to actually be on board with something like that? No fucking way.
37 are.
37 already are.
37 are. But now the states that were...
Has the vote gone through? 37 people have voted.
37 people ratified the amendment. 37 states, not people, 37 states have ratified this amendment. It needs one more state. Now, states that were the hopefuls are states such as Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, Utah, Nevada, Arizona, North Carolina, Virginia, South Carolina. They're going to be tricky states to win over. But yes, with one more state ratifying this amendment, it would have to lead to another process, though, because technically, legally, this bill has died. This this amendment has died because it was after the 7-year law, the 7-year time frame, and then past the extension that they proposed. So it would have to then again be brought forward to the states once we understand and really cannot know that we have the concrete 38 votes to amend the Constitution.
So, again, fantastic conversation. Thank you. I think that, there's more to be discussed here because clearly we don't know what's going to happen. We have to wait and see what happens at the Supreme Court level. We have to also wait and see whether or not they're going to even want to go through the process of changing our Constitution, which is very cumbersome. But either way, we just basically have to sort of kind of stick a thumbtack on this and wait and see what happens. So we do have a guest on tonight. It was an amazing conversation. We're going to take a break. We'll leave you with some music, and when we come back, we have Bea Cordelia from the T web series. We're super excited, and here we go.
If you need my hands to pull you up above the earth, well, I will lift you up to show you just how much you're worth. 'Cause we need to be loved. So we need to be loved. If I had you here, I'd wear your heart just like a crown. And if it beats for me, then I would never put it down. 'Cause we need to be loved. So we need to be loved by someone else. By someone But why isn't the love that we have for ourselves enough? And why is it we need to be helped when our lives get rough? People always tell you it's easy, just stand alone. But I can barely manage to smile when you're not home. We need to be loved. We need to be loved. So we need to be loved. Said we need to be loved. But why isn't the love that we have for ourselves enough? And why is it we need to be helped when our lives get rough? People always tell you it's easy, just stand alone. But I can barely manage to smile when you're not home. So we need to be loved by someone else. To be loved. So we need to be loved by someone
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, from the break. That was the incredible Anthony Starbo with We Need to Be Loved. And now joining us is Bea Cordelia. She is one half of the cast of The Tea. It's a web series that's set across Chicago, which follows Joe and Carter, a young trans woman and a queer black man, as they learn how to be best friends in the wake of their romantic relationship and, of course, Joe's transition. So, Bea, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
It is our pleasure. So we were during the midst of our break, and she was having a cocktail. Well, you're having wine.
I'm having Fernet at the moment.
Fabulous, and we're having our cocktails here as well. So, sort of, kind of getting ourselves, getting our mouths nice and wet and juicy for our conversation because it's going to be amazing. So, this is Christopher. You did not meet him when we were doing our test Skype call earlier today. And once again, thank you for joining us.
She was taking an exam.
He's a mess. So welcome to the show. And I would like to first start off, if you would not mind, I would like for you to tell us a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and then we can move from there.
Cool. So I'm an artist of many trades. I'm born and raised in Chicago. I've lived here my whole life. I started off doing theater when I was really young.
Yes. That's what I did.
I did that for my entire life and studied that in college and was really thinking that that was going to be my path. And then after coming out as trans, realized that there weren't really going to be many opportunities for me. So I really branched off and just did my own thing for a long time, and really made a name for myself as a solo performance artist in Chicago, which looked like a lot of different things, which sometimes looks like a full-length solo show I have, or a lot of spoken word that I've been doing for a long time, or more avant-garde performance art. Mostly in Chicago, traveled a bit with that kind of stuff. And had always been mostly like a writer and performer and often producing my own work. And yeah, that was when Daniel reached out to me when I was sort of in the midst of doing all that to see if I would want to work on this project with him. And he sort of gave me this elevator pitch about the idea of what the story could be. And I was like, oh, actually wrote that script like 6 months ago. Take a look. And then he loved it and we started working on it together. And once both of us were informing it with our respective lives and experiences, it really blossomed and deepened and eventually became what it is today.
That's amazing. So the series is called The Tea. Why don't we tell us a little bit about The Tea, the premise, and why it is important for people in our community to experience such amazing work?
Yeah, so The Tea, it's a very Chicago show. Both Daniel and I are born and raised. We're actually born less than 24 hours apart on opposite sides of the city. So we call ourselves cosmic twins. But we wanted the show to serve as a tool of desegregation, specifically because Chicago is the most segregated city in the country. And if you travel neighborhood to neighborhood, it changes really drastically in terms of its demographics, particularly race and class. And we wanted to do a show that really started to bridge gaps between all of those kind of walls that we put up mentally when we encounter people who are different from ourselves, but ultimately a show that would be queer at its heart and would embrace people across a lot of different boundaries with regards to sort of all the other demographics. And that was the sort of core idea that we had each separately come up with, was a white trans woman and a queer black man who are best friends. And yeah, so that was always like a really sort of core mission of the show. And also we wanted to honor our respective experiences coming up in the city, both of us coming from very religious backgrounds that weren't affirming and wanting to grapple at times with that. And I mean, just ultimately make a show that is fun and like got some juicy drama and has like sex and love. And I mean, a lot of things that are definitely universal, but also that are hyper specific to in the ways in which we experience those as the people we are. But yeah, it kind of came out of all of that.
So can I ask, so through the web series, we watch you trying to find love, really.
Yeah.
And there are moments where you just kind of look defeated. And I want you to talk a little bit more about what it is to be trans looking for love in the LGBT plus community. Especially in this series, you feel it. You literally feel the pain that you're going through. And I
Yeah.
think that's one of the most beautiful parts about the series. And so I would love for you to elaborate on that.
Thank you. Yeah, dating while trans is super fraught. Is the number one adjective I always use to describe it. Essentially, what I have found in my life, and I, like Joe in the series, predominantly find myself going for men, which is unfortunate. I've been trying to will myself to be gayer personally. But no, I mean, the thing that I found with a lot of cisgender men is that they aren't, for those who are attracted to trans women, who carry the capacity to love trans women, um, they 9 times out of 9 do not have the guts to actually show up for trans women in the full sense of that word. And it's
Right.
and I say that they have the capacity to love trans women and that they don't love trans women, because if they actually loved us, they would bring us home to meet their families and friends. They would show up for us when, like, their friends say some disparaging comment. They would really kind of be way more of an advocate in the rest of their lives. And the main romance that you see for Joe in season 1 of The Tea is with this man, Robin, who has this capacity to love trans women, but also can't reconcile having that knowledge ever be public. And he can't imagine his family ever knowing that, or his friends ever knowing that. And you only ever see the two of them in his apartment alone the entire series. You never see them out and about. You never see them interacting with anyone else, which is intentional. Yeah, and I mean, I
And
guess I
that's
don't
normal,
spoil
right?
the ending, but that does become like the sort of central issue between the two of them, is that he fundamentally won't show up for her in the way that she deserves.
Is that normal for the trans community to be dating somebody and literally not have any interaction with their family or
Or in public, or spending actual time together outside of the privacy of their own home.
I mean, I can't speak for the trans community, but from my own experience and from talking to other trans women in particular, I think it is something that most acutely happens in relationships between trans women and cis men. But I definitely have noticed that trend
So
of people who, yeah, they won't. I mean, because in their minds, that's going to like somehow make them gay, or that it'll like somehow undermine their masculinity, which is none of that's true. But because they're carrying around all of these,
preconceived
very,
notions?
sorry, say that again.
Preconceived notions?
Yeah, and just things that are false that they're still holding on to about trans women and about gender and about sexuality. They are more scared of the implications of that if that got out versus the extent to which they're actually trying to love us. So yeah, that's why I always say capacity, because if they actually loved us, that should conquer the other stuff, and that should be able to allow them to step forth and actually take that step of showing up and like having those difficult conversations with their friends and their family, but most of them just refuse.
So when I watch the series, it's they're very short episodes. You can get through the entire series, probably in, I would say, 35 minutes.
45, yeah.
I was left wanting more. And so you
Same.
just said this is season 1.
Yup.
So does that mean we get more?
Um, that's all still up in the air right now.
Okay.
The reason the episodes are so short was because it's very expensive to make film, and it's very expensive when you are specifically raising all of that money by yourself. So,
Oh, honey, I know.
Daniel and I wrote the series, we directed it, we produced it, we star in it, we did absolutely everything. It was essentially like a full-time job for 2 years that really didn't pay much at all, and we had to apply to so many grants and do a crowdfunding campaign and just hustle so hard for the amount of money to make this short of a series. So we're definitely hopeful for possibly a season 2. in a dream world, like just a full TV show on a network version of this. And we've got other projects too in the works that we've been cooking up. A lot of pots on the stove.
So we actually haven't really talked about the meat of the show, and I don't want to give anything away for our listeners, but I do want to talk about the arc of the show because there's a lot of intense shit that happens in your show. And so from the beginning to the end of the series, can we just talk about the process and like the arc of the show really? And
there's so many important topics that were
know,
rolled up
I
into
literally
40 plus minutes, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my god, that final episode.
I can't.
In where Daniel's character is coming to visit you at your place of work, and you're having that conversation. And I'm not going to say what it is because I want people to watch this. I want people to support what you're doing because I think it is important and amazing. But that broke me. I was just like, oh my god.
Good, that was the intent.
Oh my god.
I mean, like, we cried when we wrote that scene. Yeah, that's like about the midway point of the series. Yeah, I mean, it's always funny to me. Like, one piece of feedback that we've gotten a number of times is that people are surprised by the sort of journey of the first season. And for us, we always wrote very instinctually. It went through many drafts. Also, we originally wrote it to be much longer, and because of some funding issues, had to trim it down pretty intensely, which is why it is so condensed, and you do get that much that quickly because that was all the space we had. And when we looked at everything we had originally written and realized how much space we actually had to fill, we really were judicious in picking the absolute most important storylines and themes and still putting them in a way that feels cohesive and whole and not like an overload, but that is really replete. So yeah, that also does leave you with quite a few pretty intense moments, including that like halfway the end of episode 3 you're talking about out of 6.
I was flabbergasted because of course you guys, I mean, we can talk a little bit about it. You guys had a romantic relationship before you started navigating the possibility of becoming really good friends and best friends.
So that part is based off of a real life relationship that I have, which was the last man who I had dated before coming out. And over the years, that went from me being very, very heartbroken about it to like us tentatively being friends, and gradually that like sort of relaxed, and the longer it went on, the easier it became, and then eventually we became to be really, really good friends, which was kind of wild to me because that had never happened with an ex before. And just the way that specifically looks like when you have a queer man and someone who used to identify that way but is now a trans woman, and just the kind of extra specifics that fall into place with something like that, was a story that I was really invested in telling. So we sort of put that and married it to Daniel's and my specific upbringings and experiences, and the tea kind of came from those two main sources of inspiration.
That's really interesting though, because like we talk on the show about, when you come out, you people are afraid to come out. People are afraid to admit who they really are. We all know that.
It's so vulnerable when you do that.
It's a hard thing to do. But then as a trans individual, you come out
Again.
as whatever, whether you want to come out as, because when I first came out, I came out as bi, and then I came out as gay. But it's a little different. So then you come out as trans. Do you feel as though that you lose more of your circle? Because in the series, it feels like you're trying to connect with people that you don't feel connected to, and then you connect with individuals that have the same liking, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there's a lot of family in this show, both chosen and blood. So one of my favorite scenes in the show is this really lovely scene between Jo and her mom, and they're having this really sweet conversation, and her mom is trying to reach out to her but knows her well enough to sort of tread lightly, because Jo is really good at shutting down and not letting her mom in. And her mom's like really trying and wants to connect and can easily read that there's a lot more going on than Joe's letting on, but she's just not in a place where she's able to show up as that much of herself with her mom yet. And so you see each of the characters, Joe and Carter, like reveal different parts of themselves depending on who they're with. So Joe gets to be a different person with like her trans sister Emery than she does with her mom, than she does with Carter. And Carter does when he's with his cousin Becca versus when he's with Teddy, this man who he's dating, versus when he's with his stepfather versus Joe. So yeah, there's a whole mix of what different people who have different kind of entry points to their lives bring out in them, and also like acknowledging the fact that neither of them can fully show up as themselves to each other. Like Joe will always have a blind spot for Carter around race and class, and he will always have a blind spot around like transness and womanhood. So despite that, they do have this really beautiful connection that we see really evolve over the course of the season, and they always kind of keep finding each other amidst all of the separate stuff that they're navigating. But we never wanted it to be that like they are like they perfectly always get each other. Like no, they still need other people for different things. But
I mean, there were clearly many parts of the series where you can see that your relationship, you're at odds with your relationship with him, given the choices that he's making and the choices that you sort of kind of wanted him to make, right? Because you're wanting him to go in one way, but he's going in the other. And so you can see that conflict. I mean, I can tell you that the work was beautifully shot, and the way that you told that story was just completely amazing. And to do that in 5 or 6 episodes, I think it was just incredible because, as you said, you had so much more, but you had to sort of kind of condense and pick the right moments and the right stories to make it make sense without really taking away from the big picture. But you guys did it amazingly beautiful. That absolutely great work. I have to tell you.
It was a lot funnier originally. It definitely turned into a drama. It was definitely more towards the dramedy side. But when we had to pare down, the comedy was the first thing that really had to go in order for us to hit all of the points that we wanted to. Yeah. There are still funny moments that catch me off guard too whenever we have a screening or we're at a festival and the audience will laugh at things that catch me off guard. I'm like, really? You found that was supposed to be sweet? But they always laugh a lot more at Robin than I expect them to.
So what does this mean to you, though? Like, individually, putting this story out there, why is that so important to you?
I mean, how much time do we have? 2 hours? 3 hours?
Honey, you are our guest. You have as much time as you need.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so, where to begin? I mean, so I'll start with Daniel, I guess. So Daniel has, most of his career has been as an actor, whereas I've mostly been, again, like this writer-performer person. And he's actually currently on season 7 of Chicago Fire, so everybody go check him out on NBC.
Yeah, proud of him.
But he was really sick of going in for playing, like, gang members and just, like, a bunch of stereotypes that we're way too used to seeing for black men on screen. And he got really sick of being called in for these like tiny roles on big shows that didn't actually have any like emotional arc or depth or anything, but that were just kind of reinforcing the same old stereotypes. And that was why he reached out to me, because he wanted to do something that had a lot more depth, that encompassed a lot more of himself. For myself, I really came to this starting to be a little bit fed up with theater and performance art and wanting to be able to reach a wider audience. Because when you're doing live performance, you put in a lot of work for a much smaller return. There's, maybe like 100 people who come to this show, or like 50 people who are at that one, or like smaller often, depending on the venue. And I got really sick of having all of these stories that I wanted to tell, but just not getting them out to as many people as I wanted to be. And that was sort of how we landed on the web series itself as a medium, and looking more towards TV and film as something that can be played as many times, and whenever people want to watch it, it's there. And that was really exciting to us as a medium. And I guess when you look at the history of trans representation, I mean, few and far between. Still to this day, we're getting far too many cis actors playing trans characters, which always reinforces the idea that transness is somehow a costume, but not actually something that is inherent to us and that is true about us. And between that and between seeing trans women very, very almost exclusively depicted as sex workers or like in conversation with violence. And those are important stories to tell. And Pose does that beautifully on FX. But most times when people are telling those trans stories, it isn't trans people writing them. It isn't trans people behind the camera directing them. It isn't ever done with a sort of complex, nuanced understanding. If you want to tell a story about a trans sex worker, like, go for it, but do it well. And most people don't. And so I wanted to create something that felt a lot truer to myself. I was really sick of just the sort of day-to-day assumptions that people would make about me. People were all like, are still often surprised when they hear that I have like an amazing relationship with my parents. Like they assume that because you're trans, you have to have been exiled. And that happens with a lot of people, but not to everyone. And I wanted to show what like a healthy mother-daughter relationship looks like where the daughter happens to be trans. And that's why that scene is one of my favorites. But yeah, really, I mean, it was to be able to show like three-dimensional, really complex characters who are queer and trans, and like, I mean, looking across the whole show, like a whole bunch of people of color, and just to give those people a lot more humanity and different narratives than what we're used to seeing, just so that anyone, our sort of goal is that when we make a show and you watch a trailer for it, you will find yourself somewhere in that trailer enough to like buy in and enter into the show. And then when you're there, you're also being exposed to all these other people of all these other identities who are having all these other kinds of narratives, and hopefully walking away from it with your usually narrow assumptions that you've learned from Fox News and social media and whatever to be broadened that much more. Right. So you can go out into the world and have a little bit more empathy for those people. It was even like the decision to make Robin's character an Asian American man, because Asian American men are so often emasculated in media representation, and we knew that Robin was going to be this like sexy top dude, and we wanted to like put an Asian American man in that role, because like even like something little like that expands your assumptions about people a little bit more. So just trying to find a lot of little ways to do that. And of course, like the biggest ways in the narratives of Joe and Carter.
And it's interesting you mentioned the Asian American perspective, because it is very difficult for the Asian community to come out to their parents, whether it be gay or transgender, especially because some of their parents who are at this point much, much older, they were, during the point in their life when they were in China, they were only allowed to have one child. So with the idea of having a gay son or a transgender son or daughter made them think that they weren't going to be able to have, grandchildren, which is incredibly important to them. Another thing that was important that I love that you pointed out was a false title saying a costume. I'm a trans woman. I'm not a costume. Bobby Ashton, who had been on a show, shared something on Facebook about a trans woman, and it was saying, I am transgender, a woman, a human being. I'm not a fetish. I'm not a costume. I'm not a dirty secret. I'm not a tranny. And that was one thing that stuck with me right when you said a costume, because I remember seeing that post and it brought me right to it right away.
Yeah, I do want to complicate the idea. Like, I don't like to make any blanket statements about any demographics, and particularly the idea that like it is difficult for any Asian American person to come out. Like I have plenty of queer and trans Asian American friends who are also like out and thriving and happy. And I also want to,
I apologize.
And I also want to make it clear that Robin isn't queer. He is definitely like a straight cis man who is trying to be in love and fucking it up with a trans woman.
Right. And one of the things that you point out, it's like a lot of like these studios nowadays are writing films about trans women. We look at, for example, the film that Felicity Huffman was in, a couple of years back, and where she played a
Trans
trans
okay,
woman
yeah.
being a woman. And I'm saying to myself, okay, so let me get this straight. You want to write about the trans community, but you didn't feel the need to go out and reach out to someone who's actually trans, one, or hire actors that are
Well,
trans.
that movie is actually a little complicated because there are a lot of trans women in the movie, but just not in the titular role, and that's so silly to me. um, because like clearly they wanted a big Desperate Housewives name at
Yeah,
the
of
top
course.
of the billing so people would actually come and see it, but ultimately that just does a disservice, and I detest that movie. It plays into every single trope that you ever see about trans women, especially in film and media. Like, you have a gratuitous shot where you have to see their genitals at some point. They love to have shots of us like getting ready in the mirror, and we specifically, there's 3 moments in the first 2 episodes where you have Joe looking in the mirror, which was very intentional. And we think a lot when we're writing about how we can either reclaim or trouble tropes that we're really used to seeing, how we can use things that we know are already going to be kind of a minefield to walk on, but find a way to personalize them, which is what we did with those 3 mirror moments with Joe. But then also just moving so far outside of the tropes that you're used to seeing, so that you ultimately are, again, walking away with a broader mindset about what is possible.
So I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, when it comes to kids these days, I mean, so many kids these days are coming out as transgender, and you have parents,
Much younger ages.
correct, and you have parents that are dealing with this. Um, what would your advice be to those parents? Should those kids go on blockers? What would you suggest if they are supportive of their kids? Um,
Well, first, I would say if they're not supportive of their kids, to get with the program.
yes,
Agreed.
yes, of course.
Yeah. I mean, just listen to your kids. They're gonna know. I mean, I couldn't even imagine identifying as trans until the age of 20, because I never once saw that reflected anywhere in my world.
Right.
Like, when I was growing up, the only sort of trans representation on television was like Klinger and MASH, which was clearly just supposed to be a laugh line. And of course,
Right.
that person can't ever be taken seriously. And then we had Chandler's father figure in Friends, played by Kathleen Turner, who again was just like an entirely there to be a constant punchline.
Right.
Even like Will and Grace, Queer as Folk, like LGBT, well, like gay shows specifically, have histories of transphobia in them. And so it never even occurred to me, given what I saw around me, that I even had the option to be trans. And what it tells me now, that kids are coming out younger and younger, is progress, in that they're seeing enough reflected in their world to be able to understand the feelings and experiences that they're having that I wasn't able to put words to. And that a lot of people my age were not able to put words to either. And I fully believe a kid if they come out and say that they're trans, and to figure out whatever the best path forward with that is. If that means blockers, then great, let's put them on blockers. Like, whatever, yeah, whatever they need.
See, that's the beauty of having the media accessible the way we do today, right? I
Yeah.
didn't have Facebook 15 years ago, or even the internet as profoundly as it is used today, as so
Right.
upfront and in your face. And what I notice is that a series like the one that you're producing could be used to showcase not only cisgender males who identify as gay, or cisgender males who identify as straight, but also transgender women in a way that is not what you typically would see in a movie. Like you said, you would be
Mhm.
either playing a role where you would have to be some sort of like sex worker, or things, or specific roles that are used to sort of kind of put you in a box. And what you're
Right.
doing is allowing people to see other aspects of what it actually is versus what you think it is, and gives them an opportunity to learn, and it provides visibility within our community so that everyone else can understand and look at your perspective and say, okay, I think I fall there, and I think this is where I need to go, and this is where I need to be.
But beyond that
Versus,
too, there's like so much humanity in it, right?
that's
So
right.
there's like so much love and passion, and you just the series you literally feel for every individual that you encounter in this web series, and it makes you realize that no matter who you are, no matter what you identify as, you're human and you have pain and you have love and you have all these things just like everybody else does. And I think that's the beauty in the series.
Yes.
It's not just showing like I am this, so acknowledge this. It's I am this, but I'm also human. I'm just human, and I love, I cry, I hurt, I have a mom, I have a dad, I have these. I'm just like you. Just myself.
No, and I can think of all the people that could benefit. For example, we have more and more every day, we're seeing a lot of LGBTQ centers open and provide services and resources to young adults that are growing up and trying to find their way, trying to find their identity. And I look at web series like what you're producing and other programs that are being produced today that are so instrumental in showing them ways in where they can be who they are in a positive way rather than being shown through media or through movies what it is
Right.
that they think, and or straight people or think that trans or gay or gender non-binary should be.
Right.
And I
I
think
do
it's
want to give
amazing.
a specific shout out to Steven Universe on Cartoon Network, because I know we sort of started this leg of the conversation by talking about children, and the tea is great. I love the tea, and it's got some great representation. It is not suitable for children. It's definitely like
Agreed.
the equivalent of rated R. There's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
adult content. However, Steven Universe is one of my favorite shows on TV because it tackles issues of queerness and transness in the most fun, celebratory way, and I call it the queerest, like most feminist show on television. So if parents are listening to this and wondering how to help
They
encourage
are.
their kids along, then I would show them Steven Universe.
Wow.
Steven
Of
Universe.
course it says Steven. I mean, like, I don't. I have an issue with Stevens. I've got like 10 of them. So,
And a half.
but
Every person she dates starts with an ST, so
literally, I can't. It's the weirdest thing.
Well, I have a friend, Patrick, who only dated Patricks for a while, and that was just really messy. So,
Yeah. No.
not quite that
I
bad.
met a random side note. I met a Nick the other day. I'm a Nick, and I was like, I don't know. Could I do it? Maybe it'd be weird.
It is weird. I made out with a Chris in Canada one time, and it was odd.
I've never made out with a Tom.
Anyways,
Me
so,
neither.
So
We'll keep it
before we
that way.
close out tonight, I just want to ask, what are your hopes for this, and what's coming next
For the tea, or
for the tea? What are the hopes for the tea, and then for you,
Yeah.
what's next?
my hopes for the tea, we would love to turn it into like a full network show. We have season 1 of what that looks like mapped out, of what 10 30-minute episodes look like literally so much more content than what we were able to like squeeze into this, which gives the show way more time to breathe, to be funny, to be dirty, to cover a lot more aspects of their life, and to go into each of those aspects with a lot more depth than we were able to. And we're both very proud of what we were able to accomplish in this time frame, but we also know how much more we could accomplish with that much more.
Right.
So that is kind of the big dream. And again, we have like other TV show ideas, movie ideas that we've been working on that are exciting to us too. So, I mean, the tea isn't the only iteration of this kind of work that we want to be making.
Well,
And my hope is just to continue making it, but to get paid to do it so I can actually,
Right.
do it on
I
a
can
bigger
tell you,
scale and make a living.
if you have other works and you're looking to get the word out there, and we can help in any way, shape, or form, let us know. Please do so, because
Thank
I
you.
think that the work that you're doing is very important for our community.
GayTalk credit card.
I'm not giving you money. She's nasty, this one. No, but
Great.
seriously, if you have
I'll
other
take
work to do.
a good like 300,000 for season 2 at least.
We
So,
got we
so
we can
that's what I
afford
do.
that,
I
right?
raise money for theater, so we'll talk.
So speaking of money, so are you guys currently crowdfunding and looking for resources?
Not at this time. Because it is so expensive, and we do also have what season 2 of the web series would look like mapped out. And it is longer than season 1 because again, we want more space to breathe. It would end up being somewhere between 60 to 90 minutes because I know it's 6 episodes again, but they vary like 10 to 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of said that the only way that we're going to make that is if some kind of distributor or someone comes along who's able to foot the bill.
Right.
Because just going off the grants and the crowdfunding doesn't really work at the level that we want to be working at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, without it being again like a full-time job for a couple of years just to get the money.
Like
So
you're walking into like the perfect time right now. We're at the 50th Stonewall anniversary. You
yeah.
have like some leverage right now to
There's
go
a
out and
lot
get
of
some
company.
money.
There's a
I'm
lot of
telling you,
companies.
go out and get that money right now because I'm working on 2 gay shows at the theater right now. And people
Well,
are like, yeah, Stonewall 50th, let's do it.
And as far as what's next for me, to answer the second part of your question, I am actually moving to Los Angeles in a week, a week from tomorrow morning. So still in the midst of packing. To really just start kind of working more intensely in the industry, writing, acting, however I'm going to make my way out there. So that's next. I'm also currently writing my first full-length book. I do actually, I self-published a chapbook of poetry a few years ago about Stonewall that you can buy on my website in honor of the 50th. And
What is that
but
website?
yes, just becordelia.com. Be like Arthur, Cordelia like from King Lear, from where I got the name. And see, she went to theater school. She knows Shakespeare. And yeah, and then I'm writing my first full-length book slowly. It's a memoir looking at my life through the lens of the hopefully first and only term of the Trump presidency. So it's quite a wild ride. We're writing it as we're going. So expect that out sometime in probably 2021, 2022.
Well, if we're still here, let us know because we would love to have you. We usually have authors all the time. Our next week, one of our authors who we've had multiple times on the show actually wrote a children's book, an LGBT book for children, which was also amazing. And it was illustrated in a way that was just beautifully illustrated. And so we look forward to featuring authors, especially LGBTQ authors, on our show. Let us know because, like I said, you're doing amazing work. We would love to work with you in any capacity that we can to help you and also get the word out to people of the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much.
And I love reading now, so like send me your book.
It is far from done, but noted.
But let us know. So I want to again thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to chat with us here on the show. And you have an open invitation to come see us anytime you want.
Thank you.
Well, you have a wonderful evening.
All right, you too. Bye.
Bye.
All
Good
right.
night.
Well, guys, that was Bea Cordelia. She, of course, again, is one of the co-producers with her fellow producer of The Tea, which we're going to put all of the information on our website for it.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, it's really good work, and I encourage that everyone gets an opportunity to actually look at it. All right, so we kicked off the episode with a very heavy-loaded conversation about constitutional amendments, etc. But we do have other stories. So, Nick, I'm going to toss it over to you.
I don't even know what to talk about at this point.
Well, do you want to talk about your Pretty Little Liars star?
Yeah, I guess that's probably
Visibility is amazing, and I
Yeah.
think it's important. So,
Yeah.
why don't you kick us off with that?
All right, so blah blah blah. Tyler Blackburn comes out as queer. He was on Pretty Little Liars. He's also in recently the new Roswell series, which I think did I not talk about that on the show? I knew I was going to at some point.
Don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't remember if you did.
So he plays a gay character in the Roswell series, and it is like, because I grew up during the first Roswell.
I remember Roswell.
Oh my God, it made me so happy to see a gay character in Roswell, but now he's come out. He used to identify as bisexual since he was a teenager, but he's officially out as a homosexual at this point, 32-year-old. And it's just super exciting to see yet another person in Hollywood coming out and embracing who they are and supporting the LGBTQ plus community. And he talks about getting bullied in school and what that means and like how he overcame that. It's a beautiful article from out.com, and it's just really exciting to see yet another gay Hollywood actor coming out and being out there and being visible and also playing a gay role. That's beautiful. We have a gay person playing a gay role. It's amazing.
And as we were even having that conversation with Bea Cordelia, where she was saying, it's like it's very disheartening to see, studios and production companies doing shows on trans or gay men and women, and using cisgender characters, for example, like straight men and women, to play these characters, when you have such a big, huge array of people that are just absolutely talented that could take these roles and do amazing work with them. And I really would like to, some of these studios, some of these high budget studios, start really taking accountability for the roles that they're casting and ensuring that they're selecting people who not only fit that role but who live that role and can tell that story with much more conviction than someone who has really no experience in our community.
And it's such a weird debate too, right? Because you have the concept of, I want to sell tickets, I need to make money, I'm producing this film, and so you want to have like star quality backing it up. But there is so much star quality out there that's out. So much. And people are ignoring it. Yeah. Even when it comes to transgender. I mean, there are people out there that could really push that film forward. And how many people have watched shows or TV shows that have gay people in it? Literal gay people, transgender, lesbians in it, and love those characters and love those people.
By individuals.
Yeah, and by individuals that are part of the community.
Yes. I'm like, by what? What are you talking about? By like by or by like by? Got it. I'm just saying, like, there are so many options out there. There are so many options out there, and it's surprising to me to this day that we are not casting people of the LGBT community in these roles. It's ridiculous.
I mean, when you think of examples, for example, Wonder Woman. It was a woman that was, it was a film that was led by a woman and broke records. When you think about, for example, Black Panther, it was pretty much an entire black cast, and that movie broke records. And it's like, I think film studios need to start realizing that, you can't tell a story by whitewashing it, or using characters that don't really fit those criterias. Like, for example, even this whole controversy with, what's her name? Charlize Theron. Yeah. She was initially selected to play a role, I believe a transgender role, and people were like, come on. At this point, this argument has been made 20 times fold. You would have thought that they would have learned the lesson of having to choose an actress. Yeah, she's a big name actress, but you're using her to play a role that she has no experience personally that she could bring to the table other than her acting skills.
I mean, even that. I mean, like, you look at Love, Simon. I love that movie. Don't get me wrong, but the main character wasn't gay. His counterpart now recently came out, which is amazing, but like the lead character wasn't gay.
Yeah. All I say is that we have a lot of talent in our community, and I think that studios need to start realizing that and using these individuals to really come through and really give us a really good representation of what it is that our community is about.
Right, and don't get me wrong, like, I'm excited about the fact that we have, stories that are being told about our community, but if you're going to tell those stories, yes, encompass everybody, but if it's a gay character, cast a gay man or a lesbian or a transgender individual to play the role that they literally grew up in, that they know what it means, what it feels to be whatever it is they're portraying.
Yeah, agreed.
And like actors, they do research. They work hard to
They do.
meet individuals. They play different roles. They play different people. And they're like, all right, they work hard to find those roles and to find individuals that have been in those roles. But that being said, why are you going to take away something that's already been taken away from a community?
Yeah,
So,
I agree.
so literally just give us a chance at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to.
Agreed. All right. Well, listen, we've chatted a lot. It's been a long show. We had an amazing guest. There's one more thing that I see here in the notes that I would like Chris to mention before we move on and close out the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I want you to talk about that because I think it's important, especially locally here where we're based. And then we'll proceed and go forward.
Yeah, it's coming every year we have Dining Out for Life here in New Haven and the surrounding cities, and this is a fundraiser to work our best to eradicate the HIV virus. And this, I believe, the organization, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on. Yes, APNH, A Place to Nourish Your Health, is the organization that runs this, and this runs
Which was formerly known as AIDS Project New Haven.
Right.
But they rebranded, renamed, and it's amazing.
Right, exactly. But this also runs nationwide. There are Dining Out for Life fundraisers across the nation, and we want to point out here in New Haven that someone who has been incredibly helpful for our show, Joe Goodwin of York Street Cafe, they are going to be hosting an AIDS Project New Haven, or what did I just say it was? A Place to Nourish Your Health, at their restaurant at 168 York Street Cafe, and they are the only restaurant that is contributing to this fundraiser that is donating 100% of their food sales
For that day.
for that day. It's Thursday, April 25th, and I believe it's at York Street from 4 p.m.
That's this Thursday.
That's this Thursday.
We should go.
Yeah, I guess we have
I
to.
have to work, but it's this Thursday from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., and reservations are suggested, but if you go there, they will donate 100% of their food sales. And the menu is nice. I was talking to Joe. It's $21.95 a person. Your options are oven roasted prime rib, sweet and
I'm
sour.
down.
Yeah, right.
That's it.
Sweet and sour pork chops, chicken Florentine, lemon butter cod fillet. All these are served with a salad, vegetables, and your choice of baked potato or rice pilaf. And I was messaging Joe saying, what if someone comes in? Can we put out there that if they're vegetarian, will you have a vegetarian option? And he says, absolutely. So if you can't eat meat or you don't eat fish, don't let that stop you from going there. This is a great cause. He donates so much money. He's been doing this for years. When I worked there, he always donated 100% of the food sales that night.
He's always been very generous in our community. Even when we first started out, he was instrumental in us being able to gear up and be
Right.
able to start the show. So anything that we can do to help Joe Goodwin and the staff at 168 York Street Cafe, and of course, A Place to Nourish Your Health,
Right.
Formerly known as APNH or AIDS Project
Project
New Haven.
right.
Anything that we can do to help in that endeavor, we'll do.
And if you go to diningoutforlife.com, you can find all participating restaurants in the New Haven area. And they will show their menu, they will give you their phone number, and they'll show you what they're donating. And you will see that I believe most places do 25% because that's the minimum to get on this. But Joe Goodwin is donating again 100%. The next place is 50%, which is very generous. All the restaurants participating, that's very generous that they're doing so.
Yeah.
You can go to the website again, diningoutforlife.com. You can find all the participating restaurants. But if you really want to make an impact and donate the most money possible to AIDS, APNH, you should be going to 168 York Street Cafe at 168 York Street in New Haven, and it's encouraged to make reservations again. And I will tell you their phone number is 203-789-1915. We really hope to really blow this out of the water. He's been instrumental to helping us, and he's been instrumental in the entire New Haven LGBTQ plus community for many and many years, over 2 decades.
That's amazing. So if I can get my Thursday responsibilities moved, I think we have a date.
I have a thing, but I can meet you after.
Oh, she's nasty. Okay.
It does say dinner/late night, so he might be even donating more stuff after.
I mean,
dinner
I'll
ends.
go there because I have like a dinner thing because one of my coworkers is leaving and going on to a new job.
Mm-hmm.
But afterwards, I'll go there and I'll donate $21.95, whatever the cost is,
$21.95. Yeah.
for a dinner to the
To the
cause.
cause.
Yeah,
Right.
We'll
and
fig-
and have a cocktail. With
Yeah,
it.
and that's 4 to 9 p.m.
You
again.
can. I'll meet you there after your prime rib.
Yeah, there you go. She's gonna her several
mess.
prime ribs. 4 to 9 p.m. Remember, it's encouraged to make a reservation, and their phone number one more time is 203-789-1915. It's we should blow it out of the water. Like raise as much money as possible for this fantastic cause.
Well, we'll also post it on our social media. So
Please, yes.
definitely. All right, so let's start wrapping this thing up because we need to shut it down. So why don't we move over to Mama Kim's minute? Can you get a timer on?
I'm
here?
on it.
All right,
I'm
so
on it.
this-
I'm
this-
on it.
I might not make a minute this time, but I'm gonna try. So, Chris, tell me when you're ready.
Boom.
Go.
Who's Mayor Pete? The gay Democrat presidential hopeful can play the piano and
Pete
speak
what?
several languages, but what policies does he advocate for? 3, because I'm skipping 2, I'll go back to it. Same-sex couples have mortgages rejected 75% more than straight couples. The statistics raise questions about possible systemic, discrimination against LGBTI people in the property sector. 4, neighborhood raise rainbow flags after a family's pride flag is burned. Charleston, South Carolina Equality Group gives out free LGBT pride flags to show solidarity with a heterosexual family's flag who was burned. Radic. And then, just a quick note
50 seconds.
from Mama Kim. I had the sweetest experience today.
53 seconds.
Shut the fuck up. I was driving through town and saw a young gay couple holding hands and walking down the street. They must have known Mama Kim was near because just as I was about to pass them, they paused and kissed. It was so darling, and
Aw.
it made my day. If I hadn't been driving past them, I would have given them a big smile and a wave of approval.
Oh my God! I've completely looked beyond your cursive reading there.
Yeah.
It was
That wasn't
so
cursive.
sweet. Well, I mean, it wasn't.
You were
cursive.
like rushing me.
Well, you also couldn't read print, but that's okay. It was still very nice.
Do you want me to shut up for a mic for the third time?
What the fuck?
Mama Kim?
Oh, Mama
You're
Kim.
You're the sweetest.
You're yelling at me the entire time.
We're talking about.
You're
Mama
yelling.
Kim.
I'm speaking
All right.
in a very monotone.
Yeah,
So,
we're gonna
so
cut
it
your
was
mic.
a minute and 18 seconds, but that's because you had to read
On the
that
dot.
sweet note. Otherwise, he would have made it, but he had to read that sweet note from Mama Kim, who we absolutely love and adore, and thank you.
Mama Kim, we will always allow you more than 1 minute.
Absolutely.
I'll
All right.
just shame Trish whenever she can't do it.
Oh, you're nasty. Anyway, Gay Talk term. Trish, go for it.
Okay, so this week's Gay Talk term is brought to you, of course, by
GayRealEstate.com. We're so happy now.
and it is cosmetic intuition.
What is it?
I love this.
Homosexuals' sixth sense about danger.
Are you okay today, girl?
There's the
No.
cursive.
I am struggling.
That's
Okay,
cursive
so-
written with like a feather quill pen.
So it's a homosexual sixth sense about danger. So that was me in middle school. I'll tell you a very quick story. So
Oh,
I went to Enrico. No, not Enrico Fermi. Excuse
That's
me.
in Enfield.
Roberto Clemente Middle School here in New Haven, and I had these two kids that would bully me, and I would literally have the sixth sense of knowing that they were going to be outside waiting for me, and I would literally go all the way around town and come home to avoid having to run into these two individuals on my way home, to not get beat up or spit on or it was horrible. But I truly believe that this is a thing. So
No, it's definitely a thing.
so I have had cosmetic intuition for a very long time. Go. Christopher, on
My
this day.
turn?
Yes.
On this day in gay history, brought to you, of course, by
GayRealEstate.com.
I missed it.
She was digging for gold. It's okay. That's all right. So on this day in gay history, when April 22nd, 1969, in the great state of California, Frank Bartley is shot and killed by police in Berkeley, California on this day, and the shooting is declared accidental. After this, quote, gay rights group began to stand and take notice of the number of shootings of gay men that were declared, again, quote, accidental. Now, at the time, Frank Bartley was 33 years old when he was shot in the head by Berkeley police officer Vicar Klein. Both Klein and his partner, Frank Reynolds, were cleared of any wrongdoing by the district attorney.
Of course they were. So I do have to point out that you said that with a little bit too much enthusiasm, given the type of story that it was. He was like, "Oh, this day in gay history." When?
Well, it's always exciting to talk about history, but it goes to show that this led to a series of events. When you look at the people who murdered Harvey Milk, I mean, they were acquitted. They got nothing. They got away with their fucking what was it? The Twinkie excuse.
Imagine that.
Yeah, this goes to show that they would lead to years of persecution and years of people being acquitted for committing murders. It's a sad day, but of course it's important to look back at what would eventually catapult us into gaining some sense of rights and having some sense of equal protection under equal law.
I got you.
We're not there, but it's some sense.
I got you. All right. All right, let's bring this home. So if you love the show, make sure that you go subscribe, rate, and review on your favorite podcasting service. By subscribing, you get the latest and greatest of our show delivered right to your favorite device of choice, whether that's a web browser or your phone or anything that you have, iPads, all of that good stuff. You can also support us on Patreon, which is a service that allows you, our listener, to help support the show with a pledge donation. Those donations are collected monthly and can be in any denomination of $1 or more. Chris?
Yes, next week we are very excited to welcome back once again Hans M. Hershey to talk about The Golden One, Deceit, the latest in a 3-part series of books written by our resident author and friend. And do not worry, she comes from Sweden, so we will have a translator on hand.
And we're also going to talk about the entire series, by the way.
Fantastic. But we have a release of the latest part of that series, right?
I do.
Because you guys are like best friends now.
I know. We message separately and
Yeah,
great.
I know, yeah.
They're going to get married eventually.
I mean, he's already married, so that's awkward. Thank you to our guest, Bea Cordelia. Oh, my
Cordelia.
God. Oh, my God. For joining us today for the web series The Tea, which is available now by visiting thetwebseries.com.
And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take each episode and I'm going to post it on our Facebook page. Like maybe do, because there's 6 episodes, maybe do, like schedule them every day, post one of them. So you guys could really get an opportunity to see this. You have to. It's amazing.
Great.
I think I'll commit to that.
All right, sounds good. And if anyone's listening, remember there are town halls on CNN tonight of Democratic hopefuls. Be sure to check them out. Bernie's on right now. We have Kamala Harris on at 10 and Mayor Buttigieg. That's how you say it?
Mayor Pete.
Yeah, Mayor Pete, but I wanted to try to get
Buttigieg.
Buttigieg right. Buttigieg at 11 o'clock.
I finally got it after like 900
Yeah,
words.
now that we finally got it, can we frickin' put a rubber on it,
Yes,
please?
please.
Not Mayor Pete, like on the show. All right, so as always, our show is available on our website, GayTalk2.0.com, under show and episodes. It is also available as a free download on iTunes, Google Play Music, and Stitcher Radio.
Nick's going to try to announce. You can find us on social media. Facebook, GayTalk 2.0. Instagram, GayTalk 2.0. Twitter, at GayTalk20. You can email us at GayTalk2.0 @gmail.com.
I'm waiting.
Tom, take it away.
Oh, shit.
All right. And if you need to reach out to us, you can head on over to our website and click on the Contact Us tab at the top of your web browser where you can leave comments, suggest topics, submit a question for the cast or an individual host, or you can call us at 203.
203, girl.
Sorry, no, it's 334-GAY-TALK. And if you need the phone numbers.
This Alabama.
If you need all the numbers, it is 334-429-8255. Do not forget that we do stream live every Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and you can access that live stream by visiting digitalstreamradio.com. With that, that is our show. I would like to thank you all, and y'all have a fantastic night. Bye!
Thank you for listening to this episode of Gay Talk 2.0. Tune in next time for more dish.